1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
All right, there you go. The crack of the bat. We are sticking it in the ground this time. We're gonna play a little golf.
How long did it take you to come up with that little catch line?
Oh no, that's
it was right off the cuff. You just figured just now. You just put it
that's
together.
what I call it. I call it sticking it in the ground.
Nice.
Just putting and that's like golf tees, right? Sticking it in the ground. And it's funny. The guy we're going to talk about is the one who popularized
the golf tee.
The golf tee.
Yes.
It's all pretty amazing.
Spoiler. You're supposed to say spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Before you tell everybody. That's like one of my favorite parts of the entire story.
Oh, is it really?
But it's good. We're giving a little teaser, a little heads up to some of the cool stuff.
Didn't mean to tee you off.
No, there you go, Jamie. You haven't lost anything since the first episode we did 65 shows ago. You're still sharp as a razor.
Oh, mercy's sakes. All right, but Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
And Charles, you wrote these trilogy of books just featuring like so many great athletes, so many interesting owners, the city and all the things happening in and around it. We've talked about the Lions, the Tigers. Oh my, Red Wings,
Joe Louis,
Garwood, and we're moving on to more and more of the champions. We're going to get back to the big teams too, because we got to talk about their big final games.
Yep.
We got to talk about more on each of the players.
We got to dive into the Tigers a lot more too.
Yeah.
We did such an overview of the Tigers.
Yeah.
It's almost a bit like we've devoted more time to like some like Primo Carnera and some of these guys. Than we did.
But we're getting our stride. We're figuring out how this works.
Yeah, for sure.
And how much of this history we want to tell and how much we want to share. And like I said, sticking it in the ground, it's an allusion to golf. And when you said, Walter Hagen is who we're going to be talking about, I was like, I didn't know he was a Detroit guy. But we'll get to it. But spoiler alert: he wasn't born in Detroit, but he was very much tied to the city,
big time,
in 1935.
For much of his life. I mean,
yeah, he's buried here in Michigan.
This guy. I mean, this guy's a world traveler. This guy's a world traveler, and
right.
He's been everywhere, as we're going to see. He lives this incredibly fascinating life. But yeah, he's a first club professional, Oakland Hills Country Club.
Yeah,
that's really how he came to really move to Detroit. Like there's all kinds of new money coming in the city. This is he's living in the 20s and 30s was when was like sort of the peak of his career. But so he's coming to Detroit. There's all this new money. They're building all these like fancy golf clubs. You like every if you were anybody who's anybody had like a had a major golf club in their city. And so so Oakland Hills became that. And in order to a lot of the prestige that comes with your club is having a top flight club pro who's like giving lessons to your people there and kind of represents you of any kind of like little local tournament type things. And so Oakland Hills, they got the money. They're like, we're bringing in the biggest dog in the world, which was Walter Hagen.
So arguably the Great Depression was 1929 to 1933. Now some people say really didn't recover until like
that's the case I fall into
1939, and
I would say World War II is what
getting
brought us
into
out.
1940.
Yeah.
But the biggest hardest hit part was 1929 to 1933.
Yeah, the early 30s,
so as 33 as we're getting into 35 here, it's this money's starting to rebuild, starting to come back. Much like your stocks on your drive here, they were starting to come back.
He was. Well, he didn't come in 1935. He'd been
right
for
before
years
that.
Before that. Yeah. But the country's. I mean, the thing about by mid-30s is the country's sort of learning how to live with their new reality,
right?
And so that's how once the first initially there's the shock, Then there's everybody gets crushed, and then there's the slow, steady, you kind of learn to live with your situations, and and then you start to kind of crawl out of it. And so that's I think that's where towards the late 30s is what happened. Then World War II really when everybody basically you had universal employment. I mean, for a while we were like financing the British, like giving them weapons and mass production. So I mean we were already starting to hum from that, But yes, but anyways, yeah. So Hagen, yeah, he's like. We're gonna talk a lot. We're gonna show. I mean, he wrote his. I got his autobiography here. This is the book that's gonna be like our big source material book, like we had with.
That's what I was gonna say. You brought in a book.
Yeah. So this book was written in Cadillac. This is Walter Hagen's autobiography.
Oh.
It was written. I sent a slide with the picture.
I did.
Show the viewers there.
Yep.
So yeah, this is my copy of it.
At the wheel.
No, you're good. But this this was the source material for it and. The Walter Hagen story. If anybody has a chance to get this book, it's not like Speedboat Kings. You can get this at probably for $20 or $30.
Yeah. It's not that $400-$500 Speedboat King.
No, I don't think so. But this is a tremendous book in its own right. I mean, he basically recanted this story.
That's his autobiography. Because you said you had a couple of quotes about him. People talking about Walter. Are those out of his book, or are they out of your book?
There's a couple different spots for that. But I've got. But for him, I wanted to read a quote for him about how he got this book going.
Oh, okay.
And so maybe we'll wait for 1 second because I want to give a couple of overviews, like other people talking about him.
Yeah.
To kind of show.
So Walter Hagen, what do we need to know about Walter Hagen?
Well, just rather than me kind of spin it out, I think that's why I want to read a couple of quotes because a couple of these guys, a couple of these people give sort of an overview of him in a nutshell, so to kind of shape the listener, the viewer's mind towards where we're sort of going.
Okay.
With this, and so there's quite a few actually things I can get. And what I'm probably going to read here is right off the bat I will read. There's so many choices. So this is an interesting one. Okay, this is an interesting one. So this actually when I bought this book, it was stuffed full of newspaper articles.
Oh wow, okay.
And a lot of them are like they're actually about Walter Hagen and random clips, but this one was actually pretty good. So there's a reason why this guy, the guy who bought the book, I have a secondhand copy. Obviously, absolutely, yeah.
All right.
So the book. So this is signed by a guy named John A. Holmbeck. So I don't know if he wrote his name in it. It is dated March or April 18th. That's crazy. I never noticed this. It's dated April 18th, which is Champions Day, 1957.
57.
The book came out in 1956. So it's crazy. That's crazy. He dated it April 18th, 1957.
That's great.
This
article you were reaching for.
So this must have been collected by Holbeck, I'm assuming, that newspaper article.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the article I wanted to just
comes from the Los Angeles Times in 1964.
Yeah, so this is a few years later. So anyway, so Hagen died in 1969. Mm-hmm. So this is a few years prior to his passing. Yeah. Right. So the article is written by Jim Murray, as you mentioned, Los Angeles Times, 1964. And so the article title is called "Walter Will Be Late for Lunch." And so Los Angeles, California. He says, I can see where they're giving lunch for Walter Hagen at the U.S. Open in Washington this week. You can bet me one thing, he'll be late. And he may show up in a tuxedo and dancing pumps if there's ever been a party somewhere the night before. Sir Walter is not one to let a starting time intimidate him, and he has made many a first tee looking as if he had come to be inaugurated or one half of a ballroom dance team. They can make up their mind to one other thing. A lot of them wouldn't be there in their $50 alpacas, hand-lasted alligator shoes, hand-tooled gold-flecked golf sticks, pockets bulging with endorsement monies, checks from TV golf and promoters bidding wildly for their services if it weren't for Walter Hagen. Before the Haig came along, a professional golfer was considered on par with a card shark or a pool shark who was expected to use the tradesman's entrance and address his social superiors like truck drivers as Sir. Walter Charles Hagen changed all that one dramatic afternoon in 1923 at the British Open in Troon, Scotland. American professionals in that tournament were not even allowed in the clubhouse to pick up their mail, but it was tossed out to them at the pro shop by liveried flunkies. When Hagen finished one shot back of England's Arthur Havers, the elated committeemen sent for Hagen to appear in the clubhouse for presentation ceremonies. Hagen walked as far as the front door, turned, and addressed the crowd. At no time have we Americans been permitted to the clubhouse. I don't propose to go there now. If the committee likes, they can make the presentation over at the local pub, where we have been much welcome. And then he stalked off, followed by a cheering crowd he invited to the pub.
Wow.
From a pub to the Prince. The next year, when he won the British Open for the second of 4 times, the presentation was in the clubhouse. So was the mail. By the time he had won it for the 4th time in 1929, the presentation was by an old golfing buddy of his, the Prince of Wales. I guess only because the king had a sore throat. More than any one man, Walter Hagen made professional golf a respectable occupation. He was one of the first to wear two-tone shoes, tailored +4s, specially loomed sweaters. He chose the right forks, selected the right wines. He was as colorful as a comet, the most celebrated bon vivant west of Babe Ruth. He took the champagne route through life. He made movies in Hollywood, tiger hunts with maharajas, golf dates with presidents. He liked fast cars and jeweled women. He won 5 PGA championships, 4 of them in a row. He won 2 U.S. Opens. He once beat Bobby Jones, 12-11, which is the golf equivalent of a one-round knockout. In a profession where some guys even borrow money to mark their balls, Hagen was a check grabber even when the competition included millionaires. I saw him only once, an exhibition in Hartford, Connecticut, for which he prepped by dancing the rumba at my sister's house till dawn. Breakfast was a rum and coke. I think he shot a 68, which is good.
Breakfast with rum and coke. I like it.
So he says, he has enriched the language with maxims and should be hung on walls. I don't want to be a millionaire. I just want to live like one. And equally famous, you're only here for a short visit. Don't hurry. Don't worry. And be sure to smell the flowers along the way. Hagen sniffed with deep breaths. In spite of his bouts with Bacchus, there is no one anecdote in which Hagen is anything but in command of himself. When he retired, he failed to follow the lead of contemporaries who compared golf courses and golf holes. Hagen compared 19th holes, meaning bars, obviously.
Yeah.
It was the one place he was never late. There are many ways to conquer a golf course. Ben Hogan stalked it as if it were an armed killer and tried to put his foot on its throat. Walter Hagen courted it as if it were a rich and pretty widow. He charmed a 65 out of it instead of choking out of it. He left the game a legacy of charm, wit, and chivalry. Every kid on the tour with a gold-plated putter, sponsor to match, and a free card delivered to his door is in his debt. His savoir-faire makes the even champagne Tony Lima look like a guy who would drink out of a bottle. They can well afford to give him a lunch and make sure, for once, they beat him to the check. So I like that. I thought that was pretty good. And it came with the book.
That's amazing.
It just came with the book.
Chris chimed in. He said you were destined to have that book with that date in there.
Yeah, I can't believe. I just noticed it. That's
great.
the kind of weird stuff that happens,
Yeah.
though. I mean, it's dated. I mean, look at this. Take a look. You can see the camera. I'm not lying. It says on there, April 18th, 1957. I didn't even just notice the day. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So anyways, I think that's a nice little overview of who we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like this guy, Walter Hagen, like he was professional. He was the one who created professional golf. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there was professionals before him. He's not the first professional, but he's the first one to make it into like a legitimate occupation. You know, where they're where it's
garnering some actual respect from the snooty elites.
Exactly, and that's who he was.
And I love how he turned his nose to it.
Yeah,
he was like
when they refused him entry into the clubhouse to even change his socks. You know, and he's like,
"Well, I'm not gonna go. You kicked me in the pub before.
I'll be at the bar.
I'll be in the pub again."
Yeah, because they wanted to give him the British Open trophy.
Yeah.
They wanted to give him the trophy.
I'll be in the pub. Bring it to me over there.
Yeah, like that's like the most revered championship that they can have, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll bring it over to the pub." You know, it's like, and so that's what started to change it is when
because you were saying that earlier, you were alluding to that like an episode or two ago, that was his style, and I love that. I love that confirmed in that article there.
Yeah, and so we're going to get into a lot of it. There's more. You know, that's probably the most famous story regarding that, and you could tell that's
just you got to be closer to that.
Well, I'm trying not to
bring it to you.
Okay, there we go. So I'm trying not to get it viral. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So anyways, there's a lot more to that story, which is what we're going to dive into with him.
Is it too loud in your headphones?
No, it just sounds like it's rattling. That's why.
No.
Okay.
Good.
So anyways, so there's a lot of. I mean, that's like the most famous story about him, where he like I won't accept I'm going to go down to the pub. That's the most famous, but there's many stories along the way that sort of leads up to that. And then the story of him, like, you know, once he is established as that top pro, that, you know, that's a whole, you know, then it takes it into a whole nother sort of level. You know what I mean? Right. Like that's he in his lifetime of being a professional golfer, he saw the world shift from that, you know, where he got zero respect from anybody because they're like, oh, you're a professional, not an amateur.
Yeah.
You know, amateurs are the real gentlemen of this game. And then he saw that shift to legitimacy where he was then being, you know, like he was the star of the show and highly respected. He actually saw that, you know, witnessed and experienced that transition. That's one of the reasons why his book is so great is he talks about, he talks about that. That's really one of the focal points of the book is that transition. And he talks about his entire life story. So it actually is worth a read. And there's no way we can go into all the depth about every single part of the book. But it's definitely worth a read. And I was glad I found it for this book because I used it extensively for telling the story. Because if you're going to tell the story, why not tell the story by a guy who lived it?
Right? Yeah.
I mean, he's literally a primary source. I mean, he's the guy that lived the story, and that's whenever I'm looking for information for any type of history. I mean, everybody has a bias. I'm sure there's things in his life that he probably didn't want to focus on in his book, but at the same time, it's you almost have to defer to primary sources, to people that were there, that saw it, that witnessed it, and that's one of the reasons I went with his own autobiography for a lot of this. But so here's another little quote I wanted to read.
Yeah.
And this is Bob Murphy from the Detroit Times. And he wrote this came out of the Detroit Times one day before Champions Day.
Okay.
Literally one day before the Champions Day night, so 1936, the first Champions Day. So this is Bob Murphy, Detroit Times. So Hagen, one of golf's greatest figures. They call him the Barnum of the Links and golf's greatest showman. Others insist, in spite of Bobby Jones' grand slam, that this bronze carefree knight of the fairway is America's greatest contribution to golf. They refer, of course, to Walter Hagen, the great Hagen, Hagen the Lion, the Haig. It was only recently that Grantland Rice, one of America's outstanding sports authorities, was asked to name the 3 greatest competitors he has known. To this tough assignment, he promptly responded with 3 names: Walter Hagen in golf, Jack Dempsey in boxing, and Ty Cobb baseball. 2 of the 3, Hagen and Cobb, have written glowing chapters in the history of this great city of champions. As the current parade of champions files past, Hagen qualifies as captain of the victorious Ryder Cup forces that routed Great Britain. But it is his past exploits that raised him to a place as one of the greatest champions this nation has ever produced. High praise.
Yes.
One of the great. So he's saying Grantland Rice names the two of the greatest. Asked to name the 3 greatest competitors he's ever known, and he names 2 of the 3 as Ty Cobb and Walter Haig. Grantland Rice was a major name. He's one of the biggest sports writers of his era. Yeah. And he names Walter Hagen and Ty Cobb. These 2 guys are Detroit representatives. So
you don't get bigger than that.
No. So I mean, that's what I'm saying, to be lumped into the same category as Ty Cobb as a competitor is a huge thing. And so, again, we'll talk about, Hagen's life takes him all over the globe. And so, for Detroit to say we're the only place that he ever was, that's not true.
Right.
But Detroit was, he called the Detroit Athletic Club the place he's more familiar with than any other building in the world.
Okay. I
mean, he spent a great, Detroit claimed him. Yeah. He wrote his autobiography in Cadillac. He wrote his. He died in Traverse City.
Yeah.
So
the Detroit Athletic Club downtown you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
That's have you been there? Have you been
I've been to the Detroit Athletic Club. I mean, briefly, a couple different times, But
I've DJ'd a few weddings there.
Yeah, it's
and
nice.
I've been there for a few events.
Yeah, I've been up on that roof, watching Tigers games from way up.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, I mean, just like I said, I've been up there I was up in that deck once. I've been in there twice.
Yeah.
But and I just want to read a little other ditty, and this is kind of cool. This is what I was going to read, but
some of his words.
Yes, this is his words, and this talks about when he announced that he was going to write this book.
Okay.
So I just think this is kind of interesting because it kind of shows himself. He kind of talks about himself, this kind of shows his personality a little bit, so he says, so this is the introduction to his own book. So it's just a brief little ditty here. So he says, now for the first time, I'm going to tell my story. It has been a long time in the making, and being the relaxed guy I am, the story will require some time in the telling. I have been known through the years as a man who likes parties and spreads hospitality. So a party for members of the press, radio, and television sports commentators was set up on Wednesday, May 7th, 1952 at the Detroit Athletic Club. The invitations caused no lifted eyebrows, and everyone who received a bid showed up. I did not invite all my friends in the Detroit area, for as Bob Murphy wrote in his column in the Detroit Times, I'd have to hire Briggs Stadium to hold them. About an hour after the party had begun, with all the boys thoroughly relaxed and mellow, I climbed on top of a table and signaled for attention. When the room was quiet, I told them about my book. Once again, I was calling my shot before I made it. So he's got a whole big story about another time he called his shot, which is cool. I'm not going to read it all. I'm going to kind of jump into another sort of the next little segment. So, fired with enthusiasm and determination and armed with scrapbooks and typewriters, I retired to Cadillac, Michigan to begin work. Why Cadillac? For a fellow who has followed the sun around the world all his life, it may seem crazy to choose a northern Michigan town blanketed with snow almost 8 months of the year. Actually, I had chosen location very carefully. In the first place, this resort of 14 lodges called Pilgrim's Village on Lake Mitchell near Cadillac had plenty of accommodation space for everybody, including the many literary kibitzers we knew would be around. And second, it was 200 miles from Detroit, my permanent residence. So that was important. So, I mean, he's calling Detroit his permanent residence at this point in his life. And let me see. I think that's all that I wanted to read from that. Yeah, there's a bunch more. It's a great little intro. He talks. I mean, it's a great little intro. And we're gonna come back to the book. I've got to like keep this thing in a plastic wrap because the cover's like deteriorating.
Yeah,
I've got little pieces of paper on the chair here. It's already
the signature in it was 1957.
Yeah, it's just the book's fine. It's the dust jacket's falling apart, and I love the dust jacket. I actually cleaned the one that you have that we put up on the screen. It's a picture of this. I just restored it before we put it up on the picture.
Right.
But I love that it's just a great photo, and it's a great book.
Yeah.
But we will come back to it.
That's Walter.
We
would kind of want to set a little foundation for how we got to amateur pro and then the early golf.
One of the reasons
developed.
one of the reasons I liked those couple of articles there was because they introduced the idea of how important Hagen was to professional golf. Like they're like that guy. The first article, he's like, every professional today should say thank you to Walter Hagen. And so really in order to understand how important he was to the game and like sort of this new who he was a little bit. I think we should go. This guy is giving rise to the birth of professional golf, and so he's a major component in just the story of golf itself. And so I think it's necessary, just like we did in hockey, like we did in with boxing, is to kind of go back to the beginning and kind of give it just a general overview of the history of golf that kind of leads up to where we're at with Hagen in his life. So, I'm telling you, this is what we're about to do right here. That's why I said a history of golf on the header for this show. This is not the history of golf.
Okay.
Because when you look at golf is ancient.
Sure.
Golf is an ancient. There's so many different components to golf. There's no way you could tell it all like once.
That's a podcast in and of itself.
Oh yeah. So anyways, so what we're kind of dealing with here is, like say, a history of golf as sort of as it kind of flows into the story
into the context of Walter Hagen.
Yes, exactly.
All right,
as it just to kind of summarize a lot of it, but
sure.
But it's so ancient. There's so many different ways you can go with it. Like the first premise, the first component of the story is that some believe it was an ancient Roman game called Paganica, and it was brought when the Romans conquered Britain, and they came to Britain in the first century BC. That's how golf got to Britain, was from the Romans. So the Romans they brought golf. That's how ancient people say golf is.
Right.
Like that's how far back it goes, and then it came to the British Isles in that way. And so some of the quick notes. 1457. The Middle Ages is when it started to get somewhat. It started to pop up a little bit. In some of the pictures, we actually have a picture of this like sort of. And this is just some basic stuff I got off Wikipedia. Like I say, this is not like golf is not necessarily my biggest forte, but
sure.
This is just a couple of pictures that kind of shows that you can see for yourself. But you got Middle Ages. This is an illustration of people in the Middle Ages playing golf. You got 1400s, these little golfing sticks, and clubs. And so in 1552, still high Middle Ages, you've got the first game on record took place in St Andrews, Scotland.
Oh.
And then a few years after that, 1567, Mary Queen of Scots becomes the first female golfer recorded. Yeah. And then several years later, advance in the story, 1744, so 200 years later, the rules are written down by the Honorable Company of Edinburgh Golfers at Leith Links.
Rules. Who
rules
needs
of golf.
rules?
Well, they do. And so so this story right here, this is actually a a sort of personal. I've got a personal
Edinburgh, because
story.
you spent time in Scotland.
I lived there. I went to school there. I went to school at the University of Edinburgh.
So you got a little bit of.
I've got a great story. You've
walked these grounds.
And I hate to. And here's the thing: I hate to say I have a great story, but I think it is. It's one of my favorite stories of my entire life. So I think it's I'm calling it great to not just hype it, but because I think it actually is. But anyways, so I had heard Leith Links. I lived in Edinburgh, Scotland for years. I went to school out there, and I played football for the Edinburgh Wolves, an American football team for a year and a half, and. So anyways,
did you dress like these guys?
No, I didn't wear a kilt or anything.
Okay, all right, fair play.
But I saw plenty of people who did though. I saw plenty of people who did. There wasn't a day that went by that I did not hear the bagpipes playing.
Nice.
Swear to God, that's not even a stereotype.
Well,
I lived in Edinburgh. It's a busy city. There's always like they use pipers. People would do raise money for charity by playing the pipes.
Yeah.
People put money in a hat as you walk by, and they're raising money for charity. And then then for several years I lived out there. One of my neighbors was practicing playing the pipes all the time, and so there was I heard, and that's my favorite instrument.
I love that. I do.
Yeah, me too. It's my favorite musical instrument. Yeah,
so
I heard the pipes every single day.
So the people don't get it. People, So.
But anyway, so here's the thing. So I heard about this Leith Links, and I was getting into golf a little bit. I've never really been massively into golf, but I've gone through little phases here and there where I'll go hit the ball a little bit.
All right.
And so anyways, I'd gotten a set of golf clubs from, usually what I do whenever I just go, if I'm going to go golfing, I'll go to find a garage sale and buy a set of clubs. That's how I've always done it. I've never really owned a set of clubs a solid professional set of clubs where I have a bunch of money invested. It's usually $30 or $50. I get a set of clubs, and that's my set for wherever. Especially when I used to be sort of I used to be mobile. I used to be all over the place. I traveled 2 duffel bags for 10 years of my life. I was always on the road. So anyways, I had a set of clubs, and I was kind of set to go golfing, and I hear about this Leith Links, that was the birthplace of golf. And me being into history, I'm I'm going to go play golf there, right?
Yeah.
This is, and they're and whoever was telling me about it was somebody had mentioned it, and they were well, it's not really. Whoever told me about it, they were well, it's not really like a golf course. It's not really. It's not you don't play golf there. It's a bar across the street, and then there's there's a school there. Yeah. It's this huge school. And then it's just this kind of huge open grass area. It's not. It's got a marker on the bar where they wrote the rules.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, it's this big green patch of grass. It's huge. It's this kind of big field. And anyways, I was well, screw it. I don't need to go actually play a game. I'm just gonna go hit the ball there and practice drilling it. And so I go to this Leith Links, and man, I started hitting this golf ball, and I swear to God, it was I was in the freaking zone. I swear to God, I have never in my life ever hit a golf ball the way I was hitting it that day. I if there was a little patch of dirt out in the middle of something 50 yards away, I was just dropping it right on the sand. Or there was a small a tree over here, and I'm right branch, second from the top, banging it, and it's just hitting the branch. It was the craziest thing. I couldn't believe it. It started raining, so it was the perfect Scottish light drizzle of a day, and I'm hitting the ball and just anywhere I wanted it. Anywhere I felt I'm a freak. I'm a club professional, man. I'm about to be turned pro. It was unbelievable.
The laser targeting was
on. I've never experienced anything like it, where I was like the spirit of golf was flowing through me or something. It was crazy. And so, anyways, I ended up. My girlfriend came in at the time, picked me up, and she drove up. And I was I don't want to leave. I'm having the best day of my life. It's amazing, And I was watch this. And I was even showing her. I was off the trunk of the tree, bang, hit off the trunk. It was crazy. And I don't think she was that impressed, but I was. I was you see that? I just hit it off the tree. She was oh, okay, it's not that great. But anyways. That was it. But then I found out sort of after, they're I was telling people at my work, and I ended up going golfing for a relatively short time thereafter. I was nothing I went out there full of confidence. I'm man, I'm flowing with the spirit of Leith Links, And then when I went out to play golf against my friend there, I was barely. I was average at best. Maybe
Shake-a-potamus.
Yeah, maybe average if I was lucky. But I was like, man, I just lost all my superpower.
All the golf mojo went away.
Golf mojo vanished. So, anyways, but I was telling like people after that, I was like, man, you should go to Leith Links and like tap into the golf power, and they're like, do you know how illegal it is? Like, you're not allowed to go there. Like, I was wondering why it was kind of sparse, because Edinburgh, like, usually, there's so many people there. If there's any kind of like a event or place to go do, there's usually like crowds of people, or at least like 5 or 10 people. Even if it's just a regular grassy area, there's a couple of people walking their dog or something,
right?
And they're like, you're not supposed to be out there. It's like
you're putting divots in
holy ground or something. Like, it's like sacred ground. Like, you're not allowed to even walk on that grass. And I was like, shit, I didn't know that. Like, but I was respectful. I wasn't. No, I don't think I was tearing it up that bad. But I was respectful, and I'm showing respect now by saying how great it's a great spot.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. So that's my little personal sort of
mojo was on while you were there.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I was on fire. I was like in the zone. I was literally they call it the zone. And I was in the zone. And it was like, it's like every spirit of golf out there was just like, control my, like, I had like my backswing's perfect, and driving it right, just putting backspin on some of them. It was crazy. I was like, man, I'm killing it. Well, so anyways, that's my little my little personal story with that.
Our little trip to Scotland. I like that.
Yeah, my little.
I want to go. I want to go with you.
So that was 1744 for that Leith Links escapade.
When they wrote down the rules.
Yeah, and then my escapade was probably 2005.
Okay.
2006, somewhere around there. That was my Leith Links escapade. So that's a little fast forward into the future. So so after the rules are written down, golf is starting to be played a little bit, sort of standardized. And then in the 1850s, so we're talking about a lot of this stuff is happening in Scotland. That's one of the things we're noticing here. And so so in the 1850s, there was sort of this renaissance for Scotland. There's a writer named Sir Walter Scott who was like writing about Scotland and how great it was, and sort of making it like a nostalgic, like Scotland's the greatest place. He's just writing all these like sort of nostalgic folklore-ish type poems about Scotland that were really, really popular at the time.
Yeah,
so it kind of created this like this culture, this thing where people from England like wanted to go on vacation in Scotland. It kind of became the thing,
a mystique. It was
mystique, and then like the Scottish culture was starting to like drift down like towards England. Like people thought it was just kind of a cool thing.
Right.
And so it was in 1860 was when Balmoral Castle was built for that's the famous castle, of course, with the Queen's where Queen Elizabeth goes up there now. But at the time it was Queen Victoria who built it, and they went up to Scotland. Yeah,
I didn't vote for her.
Oh yeah, right. I don't think a lot of people did, but that's a whole other story.
Not my Queen. I didn't vote for.
I've seen the Queen twice in person.
That's
twice in person.
Really?
Yes, randomly walking down the street. Twice I've seen her. That's a whole other story.
Fighting over that blue dress at the Walmart.
No, it's two whole different stories. But I've seen the Queen twice in front of me. So, anyways,
and you're not a knight yet.
Not as of yet.
Yet.
But if anybody wants to hear the story, you got to send a message in and
right.
say they want to hear it, and then we'll go
get
off
back
tangent
to it
later. Yeah. So if they want to hear it, maybe this episode or another episode, whatever. But, anyways, so Balmoral Castle was built, and then so it kind of created this idea that like the rich and elite from England were like, it was cool to like go to Scotland and have a place, kind of like we do, like in Michigan, how everybody has a cabin up north type of thing. That became like the thing.
Yeah.
And so as a result, a lot of these, some of these Scottish activities that were fairly limited to Scotland at the time, like these Scottish culture, like golf, which was growing up, that started to radiate outwards towards, coming back down to England.
That was fun. Let's do it down here.
Exactly. So it became like kind of like the aristocratic thing. They're picking up this thing like golf up in the north while they're on vacation.
They can do that in the backyard.
And then they're going to bring it back down with them to England, right?
Backyard's big enough for that.
Well, no, but that's what made us fairly an aristocrat thing was you had to have a special course, a long special course. You had to be able to afford the course to build a club. You had a membership or whatever, and then you had to have handmade clubs made for the game. Yeah. It was an incredibly aristocratic, elite type sport.
Yeah, it was.
And so anyways, so that was really that's how it like so just to give you an idea. Well, it was followed up with this, and so in 1860 was the first. was called. It's the technical name is the Open. And but the general idea is called the British Open, right? It's one of the four big Masters tournaments. So 1860 was the first Open, the first British Open with again the first major tournament, and it's held in Prestwick Golf Club in Ayrshire, Scotland. So from the 1860s onwards, the game is starting to radiate down to England. So just to give you an idea, so in 1880. So 20 years after, the Balmoral's built and the Sir Walter Scott's doing his thing. So 1880, England had 12 golf courses total. By 1887, there was 50 golf courses.
Well, okay.
Yes.
Catching on.
By 1914, there was 1,000 courses.
Okay.
So you can see how fast it spread through from Scotland through England. And then, of course, England at the time in the late 1800s was the preeminent superpower on earth. They said the sun never set in the British Empire.
Right.
And as a result, wherever the British went, so did the game of golf. It became the aristocratic element, it's kind of, that they brought to wherever they were at. And so it started having these little pockets, all over the world. And you can really dive into where, the first clubs at each place and all these different things. But that's how it spread. It started spreading all over the place. And as far as America goes, because we weren't necessarily, this is beyond America had already declared its independence long prior to that sort of spread. The USA had a little bit of a different influence, which is kind of interesting. So I just got done reading this huge timeline of all these things that happened, like the Middle Ages and Scotland, all the Scottish influences, and they're radiating out through England. But another surprising influence that I didn't really know about was the Dutch.
Oh.
So the Dutch also had there's a lot of different things to say, the first set of rules. And the Dutch were like, no, we had our rules in 1742. It was written by this particular guy. So they have rival claims to all these different things.
Origins,
we had our first, the first thing was in here, so there's all these. So the Dutch were also going all the way back to the, to the earliest days. And of course the Dutch had, the Dutch were the ones that settled New York, New York. So they had a huge presence in in the early New York. So in the USA, golf was being played on this continent as early as 1650. 1650. It says Fort Orange, Albany, New York. 4 men are playing golf, but the game is called Kolf, Kolf. So the Dutch were the ones that basically started bringing it to the USA, but it wasn't necessarily. It didn't really catch on here like it did in Britain and in England. You see what I'm saying? There was pockets of it. I have a big list. I'm not going to read them all, but there's a bunch of lists from 1650 to 1659, 1739, all the way through. There's all these little mini mentions all over the place of this right here, several men cited for playing golf on Sunday. There's these little glimpses of newspaper clippings that mentioned the fact that they were playing, but it wasn't some massive sport, and it didn't spread anywhere near as fast as it did from Scotland to England. So like I say, so that's kind of how. So golf was already here. It wasn't like it came over just from Scotland. So, but it really it started getting big in the late 1880s, 1890s. And so just to give you an example of how sort of less it spread in America, by 1910 there was 267 golf clubs in the United States.
All right.
So compare that 1,000 by 1914.
In a postage stamp of a country.
Yes.
Compared to
that's kind of the point of
the Louisiana Purchase.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get to, is to show how it was massively popular in Scotland and England. But it was popular here. It just wasn't anywhere near. I mean, we had baseball. We had, and not necessarily the NFL. The NFL wasn't there yet.
Well, you had college ball.
But you had started college football, and you had some college athletics, and this. But baseball, of course, was the preeminent American sport. That was you were American playing baseball. But that's not to dismiss that golf had a presence here. It just was nowhere near anywhere like it was out in Scotland and England. And what I kind of noticed from just looking up these these dates and all this is that it was really located to the New York area, and also to South Carolina specifically.
Oh, interesting.
And so there's a lot of clubs in America that's here we had the first golf club in the States and all this. So anyways, that's kind of the thing. That's sort of where we're gonna kind of leave off of with the history, because the story of Walter Hagen is going to begin, right after, I think he was born in 1894. And his career is going to get going in 1912 ish.
Okay,
you know what I mean. So that's kind of where we're at. So in 1914, it just gives you an idea. 1,000 golf clubs in Britain, and then 1910 there's 267. So golf in the USA is nowhere near what it is in Britain.
Right,
and that's what I'm saying. That's what Hagen does for golf in the USA, and Bobby Jones to another extent. He's going to be a major component too. Right. But Bobby Jones was like the amateur, star, but Hagen was the professional, and Hagen was. We're gonna see as he goes through his life. We haven't even begun to tell his story yet, but he's gonna be the guy. He's gonna change his 267 golf clubs in 1910 till where it is now. I don't even know what it is now.
Yeah.
They probably don't even have a count. There's probably 8 million. 8 million. There's probably 267 golf clubs in Michigan.
Oh my God!
At least. So that's what I mean. So from 19, that's. So that's where we're at, and the idea as one of the quotes we mentioned there already was to show that amateurs, the golf was viewed as as a gentleman's game. It was not meant for professionals. The professionals were sneered at. You weren't even allowed to get the trophy inside of the clubhouse. So. That's the kind of this is the kind of foreshadow for where we're going to go with Hagen.
All right, I like that we're taking our time with the stories.
Yeah, totally.
Getting there, laying
that's
the
what I love
groundwork.
about the show. Yeah, we get to take our time, man.
Yeah. So, Charles, appreciate it. Do you got? Because you used to do a lot of art shows, and then over the pandemic, art shows kind of dried up. They're coming back. Where are you at? Because you're working out of the 2 malls, and there's the 2 maker.
I'm pretty much there every day.
Maker spaces.
Yeah.
Is that serving you better than are you thinking about doing the art fair circuit again?
No, I did those for 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
I'm over it.
You're over the art fair circuit.
Well, the thing
and you're doing well in the mall.
Yeah, I mean the thing with selling books at art fairs is you can make more money kind of thing. And you get to talk to way more people, and you get to see all kinds of different environments and stuff, which is cool.
But you're living in a van down by the river.
Yeah, it's a brutal lifestyle. And the other thing too is that you can make really good money one weekend, and then you're riding high, and then the very next weekend it rains all weekend, or it rains for one of the days, or your tent gets knocked over, or something happens, and so that you end up and then all of a sudden your great show last week is just now between your bad show this week and your terrible show or your great show last week, you just have it barely balances out.
Sure.
And so you just find yourself at such
and you're not home, and then your goldfish, you got to pay a pet sitter to come in and take care of your goldfish.
It's a very volatile way to live. Yeah. Especially when that's your primary means of support, so I don't make as much in working and being.
So
in these
tell me about
stores.
the maker space that you work out of. The 2, it's a maker space.
Yeah, it's called Inspire Marketplace.
Inspire Marketplace.
Yeah, it's at 12 Oaks. There's one at 12
So it's
Oaks
a lot
Mall.
of independent Michigan products.
Yeah, it's
and
basically
a lot of
a year-round. It's like a year-round indoor art show, rather than outdoor, which suits me because I like to not have to work outside,
not have to get your tent knocked over.
And it's consistent. It's consistent. I know what I'm going to get. I'm pretty good at balancing my budget, and so I kind of I can kind of it's
where are they at? If people are in the Metro Detroit area, where
there's Inspire Marketplace at 12 Oaks Mall, and Inspire Marketplace at Partridge Creek Mall.
Okay.
And Partridge Creek's in Clinton Township, 12 Oaks is in Novi, and I'm there every day. Tomorrow I'm at Partridge Creek.
So besides the massive line of Detroit City of Champions books, DVDs, and hoodies, what else will people find in the Inspire Marketplace?
It's like an art show. It's a year round. It's like you go to when you go to an outdoor art fair, you see all kinds of stuff. Made in Michigan, all kinds of gifts, all these different kind of booths where everybody
how many different artists are represented?
We have 50 or 60 in each store.
Oh wow, okay, that's a lot.
Yeah, including MySpace. And when I first started,
how big is it? Is it like a
it's 4 or 5 feet wide per space. Some spaces are bigger.
So
some
the whole
the store?
Inspire Market space.
It's just the stores we have now. I don't even know what
But you got 50 vendors in each.
Yeah, 50 or 60. And there's each space about somewhere around 4 feet wide, something like that. Some people are on the floor. There's 2 feet square.
How many of the vendors are there? I know that part of the deal is working it, and I know you work a lot and you cover other people.
Well, yeah, everybody basically pays me to work their shifts. That's why I'm there every day. But I get to work on that's all for half my day I got ready for this show today, you know.
Right.
And I get to do stocks and crypto at the show and stockpile money for, the baseball team I want to buy.
So if someone walks into the store, how many of the artists will be there at any given time? Is it just you, or are there
Usually,
5-6 other folks?
Yeah, just like one. I mean, it just varies. Sometimes there's people dropping stuff off and restocking, and they're coming to restock their stuff or whatever.
Because a part of the art fair and part of, like, when we met, I met you at
an outdoor fair,
an art fair, and we spent 5-10 minutes just talking, and you were giving me the elevator pitch about City of Champions, and I just loved how passionate you were about the whole project. And it stuck with me that it was a good 5-6 years later when I finally called you and said, dude, I got a crazy idea. Do you want to do this as like a podcast and tell me these stories?
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I've had a million people tell me that they wanted to do something. Honestly, I'm telling you, the amount of people that have told me they wanted to make documentaries is ridiculous.
And how many episodes are we in?
That's the 66.
Do you believe me yet?
Oh, I totally believe. Yeah. What I'm saying is that initially when you're like,
I'm in, man.
Hey, man, I want to do a show and all this, and I'm like, okay.
Right.
Sure you do. And so, but yeah, that's great. No, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so meeting you was fantastic, Jamie, because like I say, I can't stand it when people tell you they're going to do something and they don't do it. It shows you who they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you just don't want to ever really have anything to do with them again. I don't. You're like, there's an old saying that says, like, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And somebody says, like, hey, I want to do this or I want to do that, and then you're like, okay, let's do that, and then they're like, huh? You're like, what's your name again? Like, they don't even remember. And you're, so it's, I can't stand. So when that happens, it's sayonara, man. I don't even have anything to do with them again. So that's what I mean. So no, you were an absolute, a very great, surprise. Jamie. You're one of the very few people that stood by what you wanted.
But it's not me, because I mean, you did all this research. You compiled these magnificent stories, and now we get to. And I like that it's almost like this is like book number 4.
Yeah,
I feel like we're creating book number 4.
Oh, it is. It's a totally different thing. Yeah,
because it's going a little deeper, and you're pulling in things that aren't in the book or things that couldn't, because you only have so many, column inches in the book. There's stuff that had to get cut. I love it when you get excited and there's like things that you add that he's like, I couldn't put this in the book, but it was important.
Yeah.
As an editor, and you were, because you're the publisher and the editor and the writer. So I'm sure you had other editors looking at it too, but you had to make those decisions about what got cut, because simply for in the printed version,
it's huge.
You're
already.
dealing with it's huge, and you got to deal with column inches.
Yeah.
It's like every 4 more
but
pages.
But that's why I do love this, and it is like you could almost say it's like book 5, because the screenplay would almost be like the 4th one, and this would be like 5. But I love this one.
Only a few eyes have seen that screenplay.
Well, very few.
Yeah, I'm one of those honored few. That screenplay is amazing to me.
Yeah, well, but I'm just saying this right here though. One of the things I'm so happy about, besides just doing the show, is actually like the archive in the story, because it like. Because we all, we know that a lot of things spread faster on, when you're on YouTube and all these on the podcasts and stuff.
I mean, this isn't the Library of Congress; it's sitting there. But I mean, out of the millions and millions of books in the Library of Congress, right? But if somebody like searches lions, tigers, Walter Hagen, Joe Louis, and this pops on their YouTube, then they're going to get. I hope that's something interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though, is that it's a whole nother medium for telling the story.
Yeah,
and it's also just an archival thing, because you just never know, dude. You never know what's going to happen to a person, and like I've spent a great deal of my life, telling this story, and like obviously love the story. You love the story, but I've spent a long time like writing about the story and telling the story, and especially telling the story, and like it's nice to be able to tell it and like record it for posterity's sake, And
then I make fart jokes. There's
fun. That too. There's that. That's
and then I say silly things.
Yeah, that's part of the overall experience. It's good and bad.
It is.
Got to take the good with the bad.
It is.
But like I say, it's the idea that we get to actually archive this story and put this down, and like I say, I love telling the story, and. I've spent years telling it, and it's nice to be able to actually get, because again, you never know what something could happen to somebody, and I like to know that if somebody ever if something ever happened to me or whatever,
it's out there.
it's out there, and there's somebody could like, because they could know that could listen to me tell the story, like, because I have this weird dream where like down the road, like I'm like a multi-millionaire, and like there's like a painting behind me flexing or whatever, right? Like my own a painting of me in the wall, like it's kind of like that movie where the guy's like taking the bull by the horns.
Average Joe's.
Yeah, he goes, that's me taking the bull by the horns. He goes, but seriously, I did that. He's like that. So anyways, I'm just joking, but I'm like. But I have a dream where somebody in the future, like, I'm doing a million other things, right? And it's City of Champions is like in the rearview mirror. Like, I'm doing all these other things, like building baseball teams and doing all this other stuff. And then somebody's like, hey man, tell me that City of Champions story just for the old old times. Like the pitch or whatever, something like that. Like, you got that old pitch for or not even that somebody asked me to tell them, but somebody is sort of unaware of it, or there's a reason why that I need to break out the pitch that I used to use on my art show, which wasn't really a pitch. I would just tell the story as much as I could.
That's what I call it.
Yeah. I mean, it was, you're basically a sales pitch, but really I was just telling people what the book is and the story, and people were like, that is pretty cool. I'll take a copy, But anyways, it's just kind of this weird thing where, like, down the road, somebody's like, hey, man, do you remember that old story that you used to tell? Like, that City of Champions thing, So, anyway, I don't know. It's, but, then I'll be like, man, I think I could tell one more time.
I tell it one more time.
There's a point in my life when I was doing those shows where I would tell the story so much that my throat would basically get burned out.
Yeah.
And I would have to, at first I was like, people were like, oh, you should drink tea with honey. And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. And I'd warm some hot tea and then put some honey in it or whatever and drink that, right? And then I was like, that worked pretty good. And then it got to the point where I was so busy and I was on the road to so many shows and I was losing my voice so much, especially at Christmas, because I'd be doing like sometimes 6 shows a week.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I'd be going from day to day because I used to do country clubs. I've done every country club in Detroit where you're doing setups and teardowns in the same day and doing shows every single day. And so it got to the point where I just had one of those honey bears and I was just swallowing honey. I'd skip the tea. I'd skip everything. And just
want some honey. That's it.
Just suck down the honey to lube the pipes up before a show. For an art show, I just take down or someday failing that. Like I was so broke at the time. Like I'd be in some like country club and they'd like give you a dinner or whatever. Like, you got any honey I can go with that? And they'd be like, yeah. They'd bring me like
packets,
and I would keep those on reserve, in case I didn't have like the honey. So I'd like if I needed a honey packet.
Oh my!
That's when you're that's what you have to do when you're like I do have some fond memories. I actually wrote down quite a few of them, and like one of these days, at some point in the future, I'd love to do like a just like a memoir, like a Walter Hagen story, like some kind of story about that.
So if people are not in the Metro Detroit area, they can find us at DetroitCityOfChampions.com. The books are available there, as well as like some merch and the DVDs. There's some videos. The first ever baseball movie recorded with sound.
What's that on cityofchampions.com?
Yeah, cityofchampions.com. And you find all those things. And then if they are in the Metro Detroit area, the two out at Partridge Creek and
12 Oaks. I'm at 12 Oaks like 5 days a week, and I'm at Partridge Creek like 2 days a week. So
all right.
So if you're in the Novi area, you have a what is that? What's
they
5
make
out
a
of
great,
7? It's like 5 out of 7. It's like a 70, like an 80% chance or something.
People listen wherever, whenever, however. But we're coming up on Father's Day, not too far away.
Yeah, it's great Father's Day.
Great Father's Day.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say too is tell them about our new show we're starting.
Oh yeah,
we got a baseball show, pure baseball,
Baseball Revolution.
Yes. We've only done one episode, but we're moving that up too.
We're testing the waters with Baseball Revolution.
Yeah.
Baseball's broken. Charles has an idea to fix it, and he's telling me all about it. So that's what we're doing with Baseball Revolution.
And Jamie's the one that pushed me to doing it because the stuff that I got to bring out for that baseball, the stuff I got to bring out for that show, it's taken me years to even decide to even do the show. Yeah. Because there's some stuff I cannot talk about on that show. It's like, I mean, the City of Champions was my first love. This is like this has been my love. The baseball has been my love for the last like probably 6 years solid. So not just the game of baseball, but there's a whole new way, there's a whole new approach that Major League Baseball could and should be using that I've tried to present to them. they've passed up on it, and so now I'm going to do it myself.
There it is.
And so I'm kind of, it's basically we're going to be introducing a whole new
revolution.
Yes, it's going to be a whole new way to look at baseball and to to save the game, because the game is in a sad state of decay, and I believe I have a way to fix it. And Jamie's going to be I want to hear it. Talking about
I want to hear it. So DetroitCityOfChampions.com, and then there's a Facebook and social medias on that, the YouTube page, and then Baseball Revolution. There's a Facebook page.
Have we have a YouTube page yet?
Maybe.
Well, we'll get it to it. We've only done one episode. Usually, you don't even start a YouTube show until you got like 2 or 3 episodes.
I know. I don't know. I don't know.
So I think we're recording a YouTube.
I don't know if we started or not, but it'll be there. Yeah,
we'll start it up at some point, right? YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. If
but just not, it's not there at this exact minute. We're still working on. We're still getting the thumbnails up. And
building art.
Yeah. So we're still getting the thumbnails up for the City Champions show. We're doing all this. And, And but with the
thank you, everybody that's listening. Chris chimed in today, and somebody else popped by. Catherine popped by today as well.
My sister, we love her dearly.
Thank you for stopping by. Like, subscribe, do all those
thanks
podcast
to Chris too,
things.
because Chris Borma's helping us with the thumbnails.
Ooh.
He's doing a great job, and we're going to get all these new thumbnails up to make the little.
The YouTube
to make the playlist look really sharp.
Swanky.
Yeah. The playlists are going to look real sharp once we're done putting all these thumbnails up. It'll be easier to search for which episode you're looking for.
So, thank you. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell a couple of friends, and then have them pay them money for us. We're not going to pay you back, but pay them money for us, and have them tell friends. So, or whatever.
Just have them like the show. Let's start small and subscribe.
That's it. Just have them like and tell a couple friends.
Subscribe.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll leave the bribery for later. Yeah. All right. We'll do it again next time. We're gonna
next week we're doing Baseball Revolution. I think.
Yep, we're heading back into the clubhouse for now.
Yeah, and then we'll be back for City Champions shortly thereafter.
All right. We'll see you next time.